We all hate weight painting. So in this video, I'll show you a tool that can save you hours when weight painting a character. So to illustrate, this is the result that I'm getting from automatic weights, which at some extreme skeletal deformations can get really ugly. Next to it, I have an actual example of manual weight painting, which I spent around 3 hours on. And this is a real example. I actually worked on this for a project of mine. And finally, this is the result that I'm getting after about 5 minutes of using the Corrective Smooth add-on. And so Corrective Smooth Baker is what we are going to be talking about in this video, and I'll show you how to use it. But first, this is a paid add-on. You can buy Corrective Smooth Baker as a standalone add-on for $16, or you can get it as part of the Voxel Heat Diffuse Skinning add-on, which will cost you $30. And so Corrective Smooth Baker will be included in Voxel Heat. So do not buy both. Voxel Heat is an awesome add-on in its own right. I have a popular video about it, and you can check it out if you're not sure which one to get. My recommendation is to get the whole package with Voxel Heat because both add-ons are really useful and they really save you a lot of time when weight painting. By the way, this add-on has slight issues when working with complex rigs such as Rigify, but I'm going to show you the exact way how to solve this easily. Just make sure that you watch the whole video if you need this kind of information. Okay, I'm going to start now. And I'm going to keep copies of the character just so that we can compare things. So this is my manual weight painting attempt, and this is an unweighted copy. So right now I'm going to do what most people do when they start rigging a character, and that is to press Ctrl P and parent with automatic weights. Okay, now if I go through the deformations, you'll see the problems that we get with automatic weights. So it is especially pronounced here when the arm is raised, but also when I lower the arm affects too much of the chest and it deforms it. I'm going to move this guy out of the way again, and I'm going to make another copy of this whole rig. On this model now, I'm going to select the mesh and go to modifiers and add the smooth corrective modifier. And you'll see that as soon as I added the modifier, the deformations started to improve a little bit. And I can increase the repeat value to around 20, and it will start looking even better. So Corrective Smooth is a wonderful modifier in Blender. Just a week or two ago, I made a video specifically about it. And you can watch that video if you want a little bit more information. But actually, it's quite easy to understand. You just place it after the armature modifier and it will make your deformations better. That's why I called it the magic modifier. And as far as the settings are concerned, I just increased the repeat setting, but I do not increase the value too much. So 25 is probably as far as I would go. Okay, so we have this great Corrective Smooth modifier. The problem with this modifier, however, is that it's a live modifier. It actively looks at the deformation and it is able to detect really bad deformations, like if I disable it, like these deformations in the shoulder, and it smooths them out. It keeps the rest of the mesh, but it corrects the bad deformations. And so because it's a live modifier, the effect that it has right now is quite different than the effect that it has at this pose. And at this pose, it's again different. If you want to export these deformations to a game engine, you cannot really export them through FBX, GLTF, and so on. A common misconception that I noticed in the comments of my previous video is that people suggested that I could just apply the modifier, but that will not accomplish anything. That will just bake this current effect of the modifier at this keyframe, but then the Corrective Smooth will stop working. And so you may actually malform your initial shape of your character. So I cannot recommend applying this modifier. And this is where the Corrective Smooth Baker comes into play. So to install the add-on, you just go to Blend Market and download the latest version of the add-on as a zip file, and you do not unzip this file, right? Just like with all Blender add-ons. Then you go to Edit, Preferences, add-ons, click on install, and find your Voxel Heat download and install it. And if you have the standalone add-on, it will be the exact same process, just the name of the add-on will be different. And then you click install add-on and place a check mark next to the add-on. And then if you go to the 3D view and panel, it will be in the Mesh Online tab. So I'm not sure about the standalone add-on, but I assume that it will be in the exact same tab. With Voxel Heat, I have Surface Key Diffuse Skinning, Voxel Heat Diffuse Skinning, and Corrective Smooth Baker. If you only have the standalone add-on, you'll probably just have Corrective Smooth Baker. Okay, that's about the installation. Now let's put it to the test. So this character is actually not automatic weights, but this is Smooth Corrective as a live modifier. And so I'll keep it again so that we can compare the results. And I'll make another copy. And this here will become the result from the Smooth Corrective Baker add-on. Okay, so to use the Smooth Corrective Baker, there are a couple of things that you need. You need a mesh object that is connected to an armature, and you have to select both. So I'll have the mesh selected and then shift select the armature as well. And also, you need an active Corrective Smooth modifier. And the settings of the Corrective Smooth modifier matter. So you'll get different results if repeat is set to 5 compared to 25. I'll keep it to a higher value here. Then you have to go to the actual Corrective Smooth Baker settings. Let me select these objects again. So bake range, I would keep to the default setting. You can only affect selected vertices, which can be useful in specific cases, or all vertices, and I'm not sure if I want to do that. The default setting will just bake the highly distorted vertices, and that is basically what you want. Deviation threshold, I would also keep at the default value, although you may want to tweak this if your character is very big or very small, because this value is actually in centimeters. But for a standard human, 0.5 is a good value. Then we have the bake quality, and that I will just set to highest. So unless the bake process takes very long, you may want to switch to a lower setting, but generally just keep it to high. Twist angle, you'll see it in a second, but when we start baking, the add-on will try to rotate all of the bones in random directions, and this is how much of a rotation you want. And the default works well, so I won't touch it. Influence bones will determine how many bones will be used when mixing and smoothing the weighting. The default of 8 is good. If you're working for mobile devices, for example, you may want to decrease this to, let's say, 4. Prune threshold will just ignore vertices with very low weights. Default is fine. And then the solver, you have a bunch of them, and they differ in speed and stability. And the default one is the most stable one, so I'm going to keep it. And this frequency will not affect the baking process or the baking quality. It will just affect this progress bar here. So it doesn't really matter. I'll just keep it to default. And so with the mesh and armature selected, I can press Corrective Smooth Baker. And now the mesh will start behaving as if it's being exercised, and this is normal. So once this process is complete, let me get the default automatic weights, but you'll see that the results have changed dramatically after the baking process. So this is automatic weights with the ugly deformation here in the armpit, and here is after baking. This looks quite reasonable out of the box. I think it smoothed the deltoid a little bit too much, so I would personally do some additional weight painting. Just go to weight paint mode and select my twist bone for the shoulder. And I'm going to paint some weights very, very slightly in this area, just so that I get the volume of this shoulder back. Maybe a little bit of smoothing. maybe I'll paint just a little bit for the chest. And so you saw that the smooth corrective baking process took less than a minute, and then I did some weight painting for a minute or two. So let's call this 5 minutes and let's compare the results. Okay, so again, this is automatic weights, the kind of results that you can get in 5 seconds. This is manual weight painting, which will take an hour or more. And this is the Smooth Corrective Baker add-on, which took about 5 minutes. Okay, and finally we have the Smooth Corrective Live Modifier, which can be set up in about 10 seconds. So 5 seconds for automatic weights and another 5 seconds to add the Smooth Corrective modifier. And it looks great. The only problem with it is that it only works inside Blender. So if you need to export out of Blender, and you want decent looking deformations, then you'll have to either manually weight paint, or you can use a shortcut like this add-on here. And just a really quick note, for the sake of completeness, I want to say that these deformations, while weight painting is a huge part of it, it's not all about weight painting. So for example, this shoulder here has a special twist bone, and if I disabled its effect, it will start looking much worse. So it also plays a very important role. But then on top of that, you need good weight painting, and this add-on can help with that. So now let's talk about using Corrective Smooth Baker with a complex rig such as Rigify. So here I have Rigify, but it can be Auto Rig Pro or any custom rig that has a lot of controls, constraints, drivers, and so on. Corrective Smooth Baker cannot really work well with these kind of rigs. So here, just for fun, I'm going to show you what happens when we use such rigs. So with the default settings, I'll click the bake button. And so it tells me that I have to select the mesh and the rig, and actually all meshes and all rigs. And also, I want to have Smooth Corrective modifier on this character. Okay, so I have Smooth Corrective, and I have the mesh and rig selected. Now I can press the bake button. And you'll see that first the model is going completely crazy, and second, it is going to take a long time to bake. So I'm going to stop the recording now and I'll come back when it's done. So it's done. It took about 4 minutes, and that would be okay if the results were good. But now if I switch to pose mode, yeah, you'll see that for a second it was fine, and then suddenly it became completely skewed. So let me try to reset. I'm not even sure what's going on. I think the add-on broke the rig or something. Yeah, so it doesn't work well with complex rigs. What we need to do is extract the deforming bones of this rig and just use them for this process. It can be done manually, and I'm going to show you how. Or you can use additional add-ons. The developer of Corrective Smooth Baker actually recommends that you use his other paid add-on, which is Better FBX, to export just the deforming bones, then you import them back. So that is certainly possible, but you have to pay for an additional add-on. So instead you could use Game Rig Tools, which is CG Dive's add-on. It's pay what you want, so you can also get it for free. So first I'm going to show you the manual technique, and then I'll show you Game Rig Tools. And Better FBX I'm not going to show right now. It's also a very nice add-on, but I think it's a separate topic. So to extract the deformation bones, the most important thing is to know where they are. For Rigify, the deforming bones are here on layer 29, this layer here. And for Auto Rig Pro, they are on the very last layer. For a custom rig, you just have to know where they are. So I'm going to work with Rigify, and so first I need to duplicate the whole rig. Then I'm going to go to edit mode for this duplicated rig, go to the deforming bones, select all of them, and let me go into local mode, and then I'll press P and separate bones. Okay, so that created another rig. I'm going to go to object mode and select the first copy and delete it. And then the second copy is actually just the deforming bones. So we're almost there. However, I have to go to pose mode, and you'll see that some bones have constraints. So I can just select them all and press Ctrl, Alt, and C, and that will remove all constraints. Then another thing with Rigify is that all deforming bones are locked. I can select one bone and then A to select all other bones. Then I'm going to unlock all of these locks. And then I'm going to right click here on location on the locks and choose copy all to select it. And then same for rotation, copy all to select it. And scale, copy all to select it. So now if I select all of these bones, you'll see that all of them are unlocked now. And now the final step is that we have to fix the parenting of some bones. You'll see that this bone doesn't rotate the clavicles and so on. So I'm going to select the clavicle and shift select the chest and Control P, keep offset. And then I'll keep parenting this way. Some parts are already fine and I kind of know which ones. So I'll just keep parenting in edit mode. I should use X-axis mirror to make the process faster. And now for these facial bones, I'm actually going to select all of them without the neck and shift select the head, Control P, keep offset. And now everything should be parented correctly. You can check by rotating around in pose mode. Okay, once we are done with this, I can just select the mesh and shift select this rig copy. If it's hard to select, you can just control click in the outliner. And then you can press Control P and choose with empty groups. And that will just switch your armature from the main control rig to this new extracted rig that we created. Okay, now if I go to the rig copy, pose mode, you'll see that it deforms the mesh. The head and hair are separate meshes here. I'm just going to join them with the body. And then hide the main rig, and I'll just have the mesh and the rig selected. Go to Mesh Online and set my bake quality to highest and bake. It tells me that I have to have the smooth corrective modifier, so I'm going to add it. I have two armature modifiers. I'm going to remove one and just keep the one with the rig copy. Now smooth corrective, and then I can bake. Here the process takes much longer because we have facial bones and finger bones, so the number of bones is much higher than the previous examples. This actually took around 20 minutes, and that is most likely a combination of having the bake quality to highest and also having all of these face bones. So in the future, I'll probably consider some way in which I can exclude the facial bones. But anyway, now the result of Corrective Smooth is baked. And so I can go to object mode, unhide my main rig, the complex rig, and then select my character mesh, shift select the final rig, press Ctrl P, and again parent with empty groups. So by parenting with empty groups, I just keep the existing weights. I do not change the weights. And so the changes of the weights that were done by baking will now be used by the final rig. So again, I have two armature modifiers. I'm sure I can improve my workflow and make it so I don't get this. But anyway, all I have to do is to delete the armature modifier, which points to the rig copy. And I'll just keep the one with the main rig. I'll place it above the Corrective Smooth, and actually I don't need Corrective Smooth anymore. I'll just delete it. Okay, and now I can use my rig, and the weights it will be using will be the weights that we just baked using Corrective Smooth Baker. I can also go to object mode and delete this rig copy if I don't expect to need it anymore. But now let me show you the workflow that you would follow with game rig tools. So I'm going to reset the file, and I already have Game Rig tools installed. I just have to find it here and enable it. Now I'll select the main armature, go to Game Rig tools, and click Generate Game Rig. So the main purpose of this add-on is different, but here we can just use it to extract the deforming rig. So press this button, and I'm just going to set constraint type to none, and press OK. And that extracted all deforming bones for me. So now the only thing that has to be done manually again is the parenting. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to completely automate this. So I'm going to do the parenting now. And because it's the exact same process, I'll just skip ahead to the point where I have already finished it. Okay, I'm done parenting. And by the way, one cool thing that Game Rig Tools does for us is that it automatically switched the Deform rig to control the mesh, right? Okay, then I'll go to Mesh Online, add Corrective Smooth to my mesh, and then shift select the Deform armature, and I'll keep bake quality to high this time and press Corrective Smooth. And it took just 2 minutes and 22 seconds with high bake quality, so this definitely makes a difference. Now if I want to switch to my main armature, I just have to select all of my meshes. So let's hide the rigs first. Select all meshes and press Alt-P and clear parent. And yeah, that is the workflow, because that removes the current armature modifier. So then I'll unhide the main rig, shift select it, and press Ctrl-P and empty groups. And that will give me a single armature modifier, which I want to move above the Corrective Smooth. I can even delete Corrective Smooth. Okay. So now I have the effect of Corrective Smooth Baker baked into these weights, and I'm back to my main rig. So the workflow that I would recommend and that I would be using from now on is to start by parenting your meshes with automatic weights, or if you have voxel heat diffuse skinning and automatic weights don't work, you can use voxel heat diffuse skinning as your base, and then I would go through the Corrective Smooth Baker to automatically refine these automatic weights, and then finally I would probably still do some manual weight painting, but I expect that the time that I need to spend on weight painting will be greatly reduced from hours to, let's say, minutes.